Firstly, a string in programming is generally used to refer to text. Now, back to the warning. The reason Android Studio points out this issue has to do with localization. All your titles are currently in English, but that doesn't mean that your app will always support just English. If one of your goals is to make your app more accessible, you might want to translate the user interface to other languages. With this, your app can be used by a wider audience. Of course, you can say that you don't care about localization at this point and that you'll worry about it later. But Android Studio makes you think about these things right from the outset. It's easier to create the app in a way that makes it easy to add localization for different languages in the future right from the outset. This is a better approach than to translate it after the project is completed, because this would involve changing hard-coded text in many places, and this is where Android String Resources comes in. In Android, you can set up resources for values which can be used often, like specific colors, or values which needs to be dynamically changed at runtime, like text titles. You might remember the resources folder from the project structure from an earlier episode. These translations are stored in a file called strings.xml. This file stores all the strings used in the app so that all the strings used in the app are gathered together in one central place. This means that if the same string is used in multiple places, for example, common up buttons like OK or cancel, then there's only one copy of the string for all those instances. The title change requires only one change in the strings.xml file. To provide actual translations, all you need to do is to copy the strings.xml and translate everything in the copy to the second language. This way, you'll be sure that all text used in the app has been translated to support the new language. Now, the big question is, how can you use strings.xml in your layout? Well, Android Studio takes all the resources from the REST folder and adds them to what is known as an R file. It adds it there as a list of constants, meaning that value can't be changed later on. Don't worry too much about the R file yet. You'll see it in action soon enough. But basically, every resource used in your app has a unique constant identifier that you can use to refer to it, and the R file provides you with the necessary medium to access this constant. So, for example, the constant to access the text for the app's name would be app_name, and you'd access this value in your code via the R file using a reference such as r.string.appname. You can add your own strings to the strings.xml file by simply editing the file to add more values to it, or you can do it via the fix action. If you look at the warning panel, you can see a button that says fix, which will extract the text to a string resource. Go ahead and click it. This opens up a dialog box. In here, we have the resource name, which is the identifier for this text. Android Studio automatically provides us with the default, which is generated from the string, but I'll go ahead and give it a more descriptive name. In this case, name it instruction_text. Next is the resource value, which is the actual text that will be displayed. I'll leave it as it is since this is the text we want to see in the text view. After that, you have the source set. We'll leave it to the default value. We also have the file we want to store this value in. It is currently set to strings.xml. We have other types of resources we can extract, but since we're working with strings, leave it as string.xml. Then click OK. To check it out, open up the project panel. Then navigate to res, values, and strings.xml. You can see we have the string we extracted stored in this file, and we can access it by its name, in this case, instruction_text. This file also contains the app name string that is displayed in the action bar. This is added for you whenever you create an Android project. So you see, this is the recommended way to store text in an Android app. At the top, you can also see how to add translations for different languages referred to as locales. But that's beyond the scope of this course. Now, I'll show you how the string value can be used in your layout. Open up activity main.xml once again. Then select the instruction text. Over in the attributes panel, you can see that the text is obtained from the string resource name instruction text. I'll go ahead and pause this recording and repeat the same for other text views. This is the updated strings.xml file containing all the text for the text views in our layout. And if you look at the activity main.xml in code view, you can see that all text views now uses string resources, and we don't have those warnings again. Finally, we need to give our views descriptive names, that is, names that reflect their purpose in the application. This is done by setting the ID attribute of the views. Currently, we have IDs generated by Android Studio automatically when we add views to the layout. We have IDs like TextView1, TextView2, and SIGBAR. These are not very descriptive. You change that up. Open up the design view, then select the target text view. In the attributes panel, change the ID to target text view. Then press the return key. This opens up a rename dialog. Just click on the refactor button to accept changes. And this updates any way that the previous ID was used in our project files to the new name. We could have updated it manually in the XML file. But remember, other views in the layout uses the ID to add constraints. This means we would also have to update the ID in multiple places, and failure to do this would cause multiple errors. The main reason we want to personalize an ID is because you will reference these views in your code in the future. For instance, we want to be able to generate a new target value after the player guesses the value from the slider. So the target text view needs a descriptive name. The other view that requires an ID is the SIGBAR. This is because we want to retrieve the value the player selects later on. Go ahead and give it a better ID. Select it. As you can see, SIGBAR is a good ID, and since there's only going to be one SIGBAR in the app, we can leave it as it is. You can go ahead and change the ID for other views, but I'll leave mine as they are since I won't be needing to reference these views in my code. And if I change my mind later, then I can always come back and give them a descriptive ID using the refactor feature of Android Studio. Now, restart the activity to try it out. And if you notice, it fails this time around because the views were renamed and Android Studio sees them as new views. In this case, restarting the activity will fail. Go ahead and run the app this time around. This will reinstall the app on the emulator. And everything works fine as expected.